grateful for Andrew Giraldi organizing this, and for Shannon and Dan for being with us with their own great expertise as we get the year rolling. There are a lot of pieces to this, which these guys are going to touch on, and then there's the whole piece of, once you get there, of life as a college athlete, which is a whole nother night and a whole nother story. But it can be great fun, and as the parent of a Division I athlete, it can be great fun. Occasionally, it can be a little maddening. But it's also that question too, and I think this becomes the challenge of, for most sports in most places, it's a world you can't imagine, right? Like Christian summer work stuff is, okay, what can I do so I can train? And if you went into our weight room, you'd see Bobby and Ifani and Christian and the college athletes there, right, every day. And, and that's only a little bit of it. So it can be a great adventure and wonderfully exciting and wonderfully engaging. And there are, if you were to look at how many of our guys, right, now rugby guys are a little bit of a different beast, and Andrew will speak to that. But look at the other sports of how many of our guys, freshman year, are playing, on a team playing, and make it through for 4 years. There's not 5 guys for a graduating class, rugby guys aside. Sure. Right, rugby guys aside, and some of that's stepping up to the big league. And, our greatest kids here, our best kids here, I will tell you, having had time in places that churn out big athletes and lots of guys like that, each year, if we have 2 or 3 outstanding athletes in the year, it's a lot. And there are years we don't have 2 or 3 outstanding athletes. So it's tough to go to the next level if you're not an outstanding athlete at Xavier. Yet, there are kids playing varsity soccer, there are kids playing rugby, there are kids playing basketball, there are kids running track, there are kids playing football, right? There are kids playing baseball. And some at remarkably high levels. Right? Pat Dormer and Evan Bernstein were down to see John Rice run in the NCAA championships this year down at the University of Texas. The second year in a row, he qualifies for the steeplechase finals. Right? And really a great thing to see. So great adventure, great that you're here, great that you're thinking about this, grateful for these guys sharing their expertise, and I think it's a good step forward for us, right? So really glad for Andrew pulling you together, and he's there for the conversation. These guys are available to you as they can be, certainly, and there are but there are certainly enough athletes, alums, who are happy to talk with your sons or with you about their experience as student athletes, and if it's helpful, although it's a very varied story, but about their own recruiting work. So thanks for being here. You're welcome for burgers and dogs and sausage afterwards. Not quite the weather we had hoped for, but there is air conditioning and music in Keenan Commons, and friendly people. So do feel welcome to join us, guys. Thanks, Andrew.
Okay. Welcome everyone to the inaugural College Athletics Info Seminar here at Xavier High School. As Mr. Roslowski said, my name is Andrew Giraldi. I'm the Director of Athletics here on 16th Street. So the goal for tonight is to help you all to navigate the college admissions process as it relates to athletics, and we have a couple of great guests who I know will keep you informed and will help you with that process before the night's end. I'd like to introduce our first guest speaker, Mrs. Shannon Raymond. Mrs. Raymond is the Director of Athletic Compliance at Fordham University, and she's also a member of the Women Leaders in College Sports. Did I get that right? Okay, Women Leaders in College Sports. So welcome, Ms. Raymond, for our first.
Thank you guys for having me tonight. I have a lot of information, and if I go too fast for y'all, just raise your hand, tell me to slow down. But We have a smaller group here, so if you have any questions throughout, again, raise your hand, and I'd be happy to answer any. As Andrew just said, my name is Shannon Raymond, Assistant AGA at Fordham for Compliance. I believe you may get this presentation as well, so you can have my email if you should ever have any questions after the night is through. So first we'll talk about initial eligibility, specifically regarding academics. This will be the first and foremost thing that you'll want to think about when registering for the NCAA Eligibility Center. And I have no doubt that being at a high school like this, that all of your students will be final qualifiers right off the bat. So we'll get into that. Based on what grade your child is in, this is what they'll want to look for. So it's pretty simple. So 4 times 4 is what you want to remember. So 4 English, 4 math, 4 science, and then 4 social science or additional courses. Those courses can be language courses, and they often are. So throughout their journey through high school, you'll want to have them talk to their guidance counselors, their advisors, to make sure that they're completing these courses. So this is NCAA standard courses. And usually we don't see anything other than these standards, but just to put in the back of your mind that they should be going through these courses at those times. So again, 9th grade, the word is plan. So planning, speaking with those guidance counselors, planning out your full 4 years, meeting those core course expectations. You also want to sign up for a free profile page at the Eligibility Center. And I can explain more about what that looks like in a little bit. So 10th grade, we'd like you to register. So you create a profile, then register with the NCAA. Monitor your Eligibility Center. They'll have tasks for your students to complete. So make sure that you're doing those. And then at the end of that 10th grade year, we'd like to see transcripts about what levels they're currently at and maybe what they need to improve on. So that is the 10th grade year. So before I get into 11th and 12th grade, how do you register? We just talked about registering and creating a profile. This link will get you there, and this is the screen that you'll see. Oftentimes students put in their high school emails or a Gmail account or even mom and dad's email. And then sometimes by the time they get to us, they forget that email or forget that password. So encourage them to write it down or just remember that password because it gets in the way in the future. So then 11th grade, the word is study. So we like for them to kick it into high gear with their academics. It's a lot of what colleges look for. They look specifically at that 11th grade year. So check in with your counselor to make sure that they're still on that path to completing those 16 core course credits. And this will be probably the first time that they're taking the ACTs or the SATs. So by doing so, once you receive your scores, you can send them into the Eligibility Center and they will be linked right to that the student's account. And the code that you want to use is 9999. They'll go right to your profile. You don't have to do anything further with that. And ensure your sports participation information is correct. So a lot of kids we see, I know that track and field is one of the bigger sports here. If they also run cross country, you'll need to register for both of them. So we consider them 2 different sports, so you'll need to register for both of those. And this isn't, we don't see this much, but we like to upload those transcripts yet again. I know it's a lot of uploading and a lot of talking to the guidance counselors for that type of help. But we encourage the students to do so just so we're making sure that they're on the right track. And then 12th grade, obviously, is when they graduate and potentially may take the SATs or ACTs yet again. You can use that same exact code that you did, and it'll be linked right to your account again. And the 12th grade year is where we see our students request final amateurism. What that means is they're certifying that they didn't play professional sports. I was never paid to go off with a team on a foreign tour and play with them. That's what you're certifying. And we'll get to that in a little bit later, more in depth. But most kids can do that starting April 1st after their, or of their 12th grade year. Winter sports can do that on October 1st. So after you graduate, one more time, upload those transcripts. This would be the most important time to upload transcripts because we have an all-encompassing look at what they've done in their high school years. And it also, we ask for proof of graduation, so that would have that on there as well. So, once all of those things are uploaded, your test scores are uploaded, your transcripts are uploaded to your student's profile. They will be one of the three. A qualifier is what we see at Fordham mostly, and I'm sure your students would be as well. That means that they would be immediately eligible to practice, compete, and receive athletic aid. If they were a non-qualifier, they would be the exact opposite. They cannot practice, compete, or receive aid. We rarely see that. The NCAA has a sliding scale of test scores and GPAs to get a waiver approved so that the student athlete can be able to compete. And then finally, we rarely see this as well, but an academic redshirt may practice but not compete. We haven't even had one this year yet. So again, that's very rare, but just to put it on your radar, that's one of the things that they could be in the eligibility center. So amateurism, I spoke about it a little bit, but we'll go right into it. So when you register for the eligibility center, you're going to be asked a series of questions. So if you say yes to any of the following: I signed a contract with a professional team, I played professional sports, I accepted payment. That's a big one. Those are the stories that we see in the news where a high school athlete, basketball player, signed with Adidas and he wasn't allowed to. You cannot do that in college either, but those are the things that you would need to answer to certify your students with the NCAA. So I put up a picture here. So this is what you're actually going to see when you request your final amateurism. So you just hit submit request now, and you should be all good. We rarely see anybody who's not certified. Those are more the high-profile cases that we see in the Duke University and such. National Letter of Intent. Some of your students may sign one of these, so we wanted to talk about them tonight. There are certain periods of time where your students can sign an NLI. And usually compliance directors won't let this happen, but you'll be notified when your student is eligible to do so. So this is what it looks like here on the right. And if you sign an NLI, that binds you to that institution. It also binds the institution to you. So if it were to be the case where you sign an NLI to one institution, decide, I don't want to go there any longer, you can have a release granted to you. However, you have to sit out a full academic year, so you cannot compete if you go to a different institution and have a release, even if it's granted from that previous institution. So make sure 18-year-olds don't make a whim choice where I want to go here, but this might be the better decision. So
why can't you compete?
So it's as if they broke a contract. So NLI is binding, saying, I'm a student athlete, I'm going to attend your institution, and if I don't live up to that contract, this is the penalty.
So that's in there on the front end?
Yes.
So they know it? Okay.
They know it, yes.
Got it.
It also, if it should be the case where you request a release, it'll be a disclaimer in there, I believe, where it says, if you do this, if you choose to do this, you will not be eligible to compete for a full academic year at your next institution.
So for that, do you lose an entire year of eligibility?
Yes, correct, sir.
Right.
But what's the downside to the institution other than I broke my contract? Because they don't exactly lose anything, because it's right. I mean, I'm signing, but I mean, you're not out anything because I wasn't there to begin with.
Right. I think they just try to promote, the contract obligation that student made the choice of. If it's a high profile, if they lose their star player, that's probably another reason why a student athlete would not be eligible to compete for one academic year thereafter.
If you sign an NLI and you're getting scholarship money, are you committed to that scholarship money?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So there are certain stipulations where that school could then relinquish that aid money, but an NLI will always come with athletic aid, no matter what the dollar amount on it. Those are the two things that must happen if you're signing an NLI. The NLI needs to be signed, and an institutional aid agreement will be signed as well. So the institution is committed to giving you those funds. So the difference between an NLI and an aid agreement. So we spoke about an NLI must come with an aid agreement. An aid agreement can be on its own. So a lot of times walk-ons will just sign an aid agreement for 10% of their tuition money. So that's often what we see. Those can be reduced or canceled during that period as well. So those are the two big differences between the two. The NLI is more binding, and the aid agreement is just that. Time management. So obviously student athletes have so many obligations. So I just wanted to touch on what their days might look like and what they're required to do versus what they aren't required to do, because sometimes it can get a little dicey if the coach is promoting you to go to voluntary activity and that student athlete may feel like they would be penalized if they don't. We see that a lot. So these are all things that fall under what we call CARA. CARA stands for Accountable Athletically Related Activity. Essentially, what you're required to do as a student athlete. You're required to practice, compete, strength and conditioning, film review, things like that. So those things would count toward their daily and weekly hour limitations. They cannot practice for more than 4 hours per day, no more than 20 hours per week, and they must have 1 day off per week. That off day can be a travel day. So we just wanted to put that out there and to verify what they are required to do as a student athlete. And these obviously takes up very much of their time while they're at their institution. So these are the things, some of the things that don't count toward those CARE hours or those required hours. Speaking with a sports psychologist, academic meetings do not count toward their hours per day and per week. Student host duties, community service, things like that. So we try to let our student athletes know and distinguish between the two. Recruiting regulations, based on what year your students are, they may be being contacted by colleges already, and they may be too young to even have that happen yet. So just wanted to go over. This is a really good chart, one that's hung up in my office, as to when you can have correspondence or private messages. When a coach can accept an incoming telephone call from a student or from a prospective student athlete, and then when they can make outgoing telephone calls to that student athlete. So it's a really good reference to have based on what sport you play. It's very helpful. And then secondly, in addition to that, we have when they can take official visits, when official visits can happen, off-campus contact, and finally a verbal offer. So for those of you who don't know, an unofficial visit versus an official visit is money. So an unofficial visit is mom and dad taking their son to campus, maybe meeting with the coach, and leaving potentially. Or if they do go out to lunch or dinner, it must be paid for solely by the family. The coach cannot pay for that meal. An official visit often entails that student staying overnight, their meals paid for and such. Official visits are capped at 48 hours total. And there's a lot more that goes into that, but just to give you a little rundown about what those differences are, that's up there for you as well. So for football, I just threw these in. These go into a little bit more of detail about those correspondence that can happen and when they can happen. So recruiting materials, when you can have that sent to you, phone calls to coach, phone calls from a coach, off-campus contacts. I wanted to dive in a little bit more to the specific sports that your students may be playing. So that's football. We also have men's basketball. And the time frame for men's basketball and football are drastically different as to how early they can start the recruiting process. So please be mindful of that. And finally, baseball. So goes into more detail about how that process happens. So if your son's playing any of those three sports, they're very helpful resources to use. So finally, just remind, I was figuring there might be a couple more students here tonight. You obviously know all about professional brand. But I just wanted to touch on that because it is something that we and our coaches take into consideration when recruiting their student athletes. So professional brand, obviously social media comes to mind first. Be mindful of what you're putting on. So specifically, our coaches will go to a student athlete's social media page to look for highlight videos or recruiting material that they may use. So they see everything that student athlete puts on there. So please remind your students to be mindful of what they put out there in the world. It never goes away. So that goes into getting recruited. At Fordham, we recruit a certain person and a certain student athlete, one that lives up to the standard of a Jesuit, being a Jesuit institution, and I know that that's the same standard here. So just wanted to reiterate that. And if you can, have a conversation with your students about when the clock stops. My clock stopped when I got to college, meaning athletically. I stopped playing sports in college, and I didn't know what to do with myself. And I find that some of our student athletes don't know what to do with themselves when it hits their senior year, and they're like, what do I do with my time? So I'm sure you all are encouraging that backup plan, or, the idea that they won't go pro. So just to be mindful of that as well. And that's all I have for you.
NLIs don't pertain to Division III?
They do not. Division III schools do not have the NLI process.
And none of this really pertains to rugby?
No. It doesn't.
And I can speak to that. I think later on this year we'll have a separate meeting about rugby. So I coached at, and that's how Mr. Raymond came on board, thankfully, but I coached men's rugby at Fordham University up until this past June. This past year was a lot. AD here and coaching there. And I'm also the commissioner of the Liberty Conference, which is 20 collegiate teams here in the Northeast. So happy to meet separately if you'd like to talk a bit more about collegiate rugby, and we'll also have a separate session later on this year specifically for rugby as it relates to college. But there are some varsity programs. There's very few. It's an emerging sport for women. It's NCAA emerging sport for women, but it is not an NCAA sanctioned sport for men yet.
How is Division I Ivy different than Division I?
Any other school? So, Division I is broken up to conferences. So, Fordham University is broken up into the Atlantic 10 Conference and the Patriot League. So, our football team participates in the Patriot League. All of our other sports are A10. So, Ivy League would be that different conference. So, we have SEC schools, Big Ten schools, things like that. So the Patriot League as well as Ivy League, they have stringent rules that sometimes supersede NCAA rules. So meeting a certain GPA standard per se. So those would be the only differences. I do know that the Patriot League and the Ivy League also very much encourage football student athletes to use all their 4 seasons of eligibility within 4 seasons, or within 4 years of their academic career, not 5. So sometimes kids will go on to get a 5th year. The Ivy and the Patriot League rarely approve those waivers because they want to focus more on the student, the academic piece, and get them moving on into the world and doing whatever great things that they do. So that's the difference, really. If you go to an Ivy League school, the academic standard is going to be top-notch.
Are NCSA and like organizations like that recruiting services
Yes.
just a waste of money and time, or what do you think about those?
I'm not being too familiar about that service. I know who they are and what they do. A waste of time, no. I think they have good resources. However, going to ncaa.org will provide you everything that you need to know. So if you're paying for that service, I would encourage you to go on ncaa.org and just search around. They have everything you need from D1 to D3 there for you.
So reaching out directly would be perfectly fine, right?
I'm sorry,
As
to
opposed to going
institutions?
through the services.
Yes.
Just email directly, that's... Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What's a advantage, disadvantage, what's your opinion on student athletes making verbal commitments as underclassmen?
Verbal commitments often get changed, at least in my experience. If a student athlete is set on a school, that would be the only instance where I've seen that happen, where they wanted to go to Fordham since they were 2 years old, kind of thing. But often it changes in their high school career. So, I mean, doing that doesn't really bind you to that school, and it doesn't bind the school to you.
Right, so there's really no advantage to it.
There's no advantage to it, no, or disadvantage for that matter. It's more of a recruitment, I would say, presentation. Say, this kid who's 15 years old, top of his class, athletically, verbally committed to our school. So the rest of you that we're trying to recruit should also do the same. So it's kind of like a recruitment.
Yeah, it seems like some schools do it a lot.
Yes.
Like, I know in baseball you see like 30 commitments to Virginia from a class, and obviously 30 kids from a single class aren't going to Virginia for baseball.
Yeah, so it often changes. It's more of like coaches like to use it to then recruit more people. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Raymond. Our next guest speaker tonight is Mr. Dan Palumbo. Mr. Palumbo has been an NCAA coach for over 25 years. Is the former athletic director and head baseball coach at John Jay College, which is Division III, and is also, fortunately for us, he's also an assistant varsity coach with our baseball program. Please welcome Mr. Palumbo.
Good evening, guys. I'm very happy to be here. First, I'd like to say that was a wonderful job. The NCAA information. While I was an athletics director, I was on the NCAA board for New York State. That stuff comes up every day. We got bombarded with that stuff every day. Don't take it lightly. Be very careful with NCAA rules. Just wanted to start off by saying that. But that was a wonderful presentation. That's almost a living document. You're going to be on that all the time. Be very mindful of everything that was said to you. I want to go right into that. Somebody just mentioned about the verbal commitment. Well, truthfully, what a verbal commitment will do to a student athlete is take them off the point. Okay, I'm telling you this as a coach. It's going to take them off the board. If you say you're verbally committed to Virginia, well, you're no longer, I'm not paying any attention. When the Virginia coach gets fired, when he resigns, when something changes, and you show up with this big smile on your face at Virginia and say, hi, I'm on the baseball team, they say, no, you're not, we don't know who you are. And they're not, as you were just told, they're not committed to honor anything. A verbal commit actually means nothing. I see it more, and I'm going to speak very openly, I see it personally much more as a negative than anything else because it takes you off the board. So if someone's offering you scholarship money, so if you don't commit right now, we're going to give that scholarship money away, then how much do they actually want you? Is from my experience with verbal commits. I'm very, very leery about that. Someone mentioned the NCSA. Well, I don't know too much about them other than they have a really good spot when you go on Google because they are immediately underneath NCAA. So I used to have these people telling me, oh, I registered for what we used to call the clearinghouse, the eligibility center. And I did the third registration. It cost me $700. I'm like, well, wait a second. It doesn't cost any money. Like, oh no, I registered right on there. And I'm like, read your letters carefully. All they did was change one letter, keep it right underneath, and people have registered for that. And you really don't need that, which I'm going to go into. This is what I'm actually here to speak about. First, for any of the student athletes here and for all the parents, the student athlete now has to do the contact. Okay, at least with the coaching staff. Because I'll tell you that in all my years I had an automatic delete on my email. And that was anything that said, dear coach, my son, delete. That was, I don't want to know, with no offense, I'm a parent too, I don't want to know what you're thinking of there. I need to know that this young man is mature enough, responsible enough, and ready to deal with college. So therefore, he has to be ready with communicating. So I just wanted to say that. Another good point was that email. I normally recommend the kids to make sure that it's a professional email. It has their name, and it doesn't have I'm the hottest.com or something like that. You probably want a real email because this is what we're going to see as coaches. So that's a very important thing. And when you are contacting now, the student athlete should be contacting coaches of schools that they're interested in. That email should be from them and not trying to get into Harvard or Yale too. Because I know I'm actually presently I'm Major League Scout. I'm the Northeast Scout for the Philadelphia Phillies. I'm a Yankee fan, but they pay my bill. I need to know who that athlete is. With the Phillies, my job is one of the jobs to do incredible background on this player, his parents, take them out to eat a couple of times, get to know them. So coaches want that same thing because it's not you standing over and fixing his emails that are going to be living in the dorms, having to get up to go to class. It's the student athlete. So I would strongly recommend you being there to guide them, but get them to start doing this stuff. They need to do the research. They need to know how to speak to the coaches. You don't need to spend $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. You don't need to get Martin Scorsese to direct your video. You don't need to do that because I don't want to watch that much. I see a student athlete right here. If you were looking to come to me, I don't need to know your favorite color, your favorite food. I don't need to hear music in the background on the video. I want to see you play the sport. And I don't need it to be 10 minutes long. It really doesn't. Just get out there. Contact the coaches. Don't be afraid to have your sons contact the coaches. Once you're allowed to contact them, which I do believe they could contact at any point.
I'm sorry.
They could contact, right?
Yes.
The student athlete could always contact
Yes.
a coach. They might recommend you going to their camp, their prospect camp, which is normally not under the school's name. It's normally a way that the coaches pay their assistant coaches. I'm bouncing around a little bit. As you can see, I did not go to Fordham. I did not work with Fordham. I am not as organized as that. When I was an athletics director, I had some of the greatest assistant athletics directors to do all that stuff for me, because I would look at it and say, what do I do next? So I'm becoming a little bit just as me as a coach and as the athletics director. You got this all the time. Please let the student athletes reach out. Look at the schools. Look at the programs. What are you looking at in the program? Well, I would tell you, look at continuity. Don't look at a team. Look at a program. Very big difference. A team wins this year, could lose next year, just happen to have the right players together at the right time. You don't want that. You want a consistent program. You want something that graduates students, that keeps students. Retention, graduation. Retention, graduation. You want to see that. You want to see the students there playing, hopefully, for the 4 years, unless they're leaving for an academic reason. Unless they're leaving to study abroad or they're taking something special. You want to feel that in the program. That coach, that coaching staff are surrogates. They're there. They're parents while they're there. As I know Coach Layton very well, I know him from before Fordham. Coaches have a lot to do with you. They have everything official, and then they have everything else. They're answering that telephone call when you're having a problem. They're there for you. They're going to be there for you. If you're going to a school with a good coach, and you walk by and the coach says, hey, how you doing? And you're walking by with tears rolling down your eyes saying, fine, coach. He's like, okay, good, and he walks away. That may not be the program you want. You want to make sure you're going to a program that has the same thing in mind that you have. And that is developing and taking care of your son. Helping develop them into citizens of the world, if I can use that term. You want to make sure that the coach cares more than just about the winning and losing. Okay, that's why that personal contact, the student contacting the coach, and making sure that they're able to show their sincerity to the coach, so the coach could show their sincerity back. This is a hard thing. There are a lot of professional coaches. The reason why I don't like all these recruiting services too, because it makes the coaches seem like they really don't exist. It makes everything so black and white. This is what a coach wants. This is what a coach doesn't want. Well, how do you know what I want? You could generalize a little bit, but you're making it too computerized. It's not like that. Coaching isn't like that. Everything isn't analytical. Everything isn't here, check this, yes, check this, no. It's a personal relationship. Okay, you have to be comfortable where you go to school. Correct? You're not going to succeed if you're not comfortable with the university, with the college. You have to be comfortable with it. That's a whole bunch of things you have to be comfortable with. Again, I'm bouncing around, but something I don't want to forget to say, I recommend a lot of times when you're close to picking a college, let your son in this case, otherwise sons and daughters, but let's just son in this case, leave them alone walking around Fordham for a couple of hours. Totally leave them alone, as Fordham will leave them alone. Let them go sit down in the cafeteria and sit there and look around and say, how do I feel? Do I feel like I belong here? What would I be doing right now? Would I be with that group over there? Would I be with that group over there? You want to get a feel of this because there is a very, very, very personal aspect to this. Success, I feel a lot of success is based on comfort. If you're in a place where you feel you belong, it's a lot easier to succeed because you feel like you have the support in case you do fail. So again, I know I'm bouncing around, but if this was my recruiting, the way I used to recruit too, bouncing around like this too. As a coach, I didn't want to be selling a car and just be going down this list. And then you would ask me a question, and I would answer a question, then just go right back to the list. I would ask people to speak with me. I'm not going to speak at you or to you. Speak with me. It's okay. We could break off this line here and just keep on looking at what you want to know and why you want to know it. And I want to answer it not from a book. I want to answer it from, this is the way we do things here. This is the way we run the program. Yes, we encourage community service, sometimes as a team, sometimes individually. But yes, we try to get the parents involved, even though there's the FERPA law, right, in college, that says if your sons don't sign off on that, the school isn't allowed to contact you for injuries or grades or stuff like that, which I found as a parent really annoying since I paid for the college. And I couldn't speak to anybody. I was like, wait a second, look at the check. You look at the name on the check. I mean, yes, you know who I am. But there are so many aspects of this. And what you got before was invaluable. Because you're sitting there as nice people saying, oh, no one's going to worry about the fact that I bought this guy a hot dog online, and oh yeah, they will, right or wrong. She's right on it already. She's going to check up my background already on this one. But yeah, you can't take that for granted. You have to know all that, everything. You have to keep on asking questions, but please keep this personal. Contact those coaches. Have your sons. There's got to be a way that they stand out. It's the same thing when we scout. I go there. There's a lot of people throwing 94. There's a lot of people in this country throwing 94. Well, what makes them different? What makes me look? If I'm going to use a baseball thing, I would tell people when they're throwing. I know a couple of parents here. I know their sons, they're baseball players. A couple of times. You throw to third base during an infield, outfield, you throw home. I would say throw one over the stands. Throw one as far as you can. Because there's a whole bunch of scouts sitting there. Okay? And they're getting used to everyone. Next. Get their attention. So you throw one to third base, you throw the next one into the stands. Everyone's going to look up at the same time like, wow, who was that? Okay, they got your attention. Get your attention when you're contacting that coach. And how do you get their attention? By being sincere. Coach, I've been following your program forever. I've been following what's going on here at the school. Congratulations on the 3 All-Americans last year in the draft pick. Wow, hopefully I'm one of them in a couple of years. That's the way you contact them. That's the way you get to them. That's why I'm not big on all the recruiting things. Make sure you know the coach knows that you're interested in going to the school. Now, there are some great teams, some travel teams in baseball. I'm going to baseball a little bit more, I'm sorry, because it's what I know, even though I knew all the sports when I was the athletics director. I followed all of them, but I know this more personally. There are some very good, these travel teams and exposure teams and all these things that people do. and coaches will say, we'll get coaches down to see you. You know, these summer coaches will say, we'll make sure there's people there to see you. That's true. But that coach is doing his job, and the other coach is doing his job. Do you get where I'm going with that? The coach that's calling up the coaches, they're just doing their job. The coach of the university, of the team, is doing his job by showing up. It's hard to be recruited that way. It's really hard. I go there, there's 9 people on the field defensively. Okay, there's a batter up at the plate, there's somebody warming up in the bullpen. I'm honestly not watching everybody, I can't. So you have to stand out. You have to do something to stand out. Okay, your grades. Don't give stats. Don't send stats. I could probably say this for any sport. Really don't send stats because there's so many conferences and so many teams you play. They really don't matter much. You don't even know who's keeping the score. Your son's girlfriend or grandma might be doing the book. And they can be like, oh wow. Oh, yeah, he looked good out there. I'm going to give him a nice. That was a hit, even though the ball went under somebody's leg. So that really doesn't get a coach's attention. The analytical stuff, well, be careful with that. Because if you tell me you're throwing 95, and I go down there with the gun and you're throwing 92, I'm disappointed. I'm not big on numbers with that. You have to first show how much you want to play and how much you're willing to be part of a team. Because as I'm going to continue bouncing, once you're on a team, that's who you are. Oh, when that phone's ringing, vice president would call me up, one of the vice presidents. It wouldn't be anybody's name. It would be one of your student athletes. At which point I would call up that coach and say, one of your players. Okay, so you kind of lose. You have to be willing to be part of everything. Okay, something else that everything that was spoken about matters. You're part of a team. You're part of something. You're part of a program. Understand the program before you go there. Don't complain about the program after you went. Understand first. This is the way this program is run. Okay, the coach is very strict. On time means 15 minutes early. What I did in school, which I don't even know if I could do anymore, we had a clean shave rule. We had a clean shaving rule all the time. Everyone wore their uniforms the same way. I mean, I was pushing team. I was pushing it as a team. So everyone conformed with being a team. Know that ahead of time. That may not be what your son wants. He may want a little bit more time to himself. We did everything as a team. We did a lot of community service work. Again, even back then, it wasn't required, but it was something that the players ended up wanting to do because of that word. Because you're a team. You do things together because you're a team. And you have to love it. They have to love it. Okay? They can't. This comes from the heart, everything that you do out there. Okay? The work, the amount of hours you have to work and all that stuff. Well, if you say, I have to do this, then you may not be right to be on a team. Because you don't have to do it. If you're going to succeed, you're doing it because you love doing it, you want to do it, and it's who you are. That's what makes it work. So remember that too. Please have your kids, have your sons love the school and love the program and understand the program and research the program. And remember, all these travel teams, they're all good. They're going to call up the coach. The coach is going to come watch because that's what the travel team is being paid for. That's what the coach is being paid for. Okay, that doesn't mean anything. Going back to those verbal commits. 30 people verbally committed to Virginia. Their roster is 36 players. Okay, you do the math there. Okay, all these people aren't going there. So, Guys, please break in with questions anytime you want, because I don't have any kind of formula here. I'm going on from 28 years of coaching in college. I was a head assistant and associate in Division 1, 2, and 3 for 28 years. I was an academic advisor in college.
Everyone is old school as you in the recruiting world, because I can get behind that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, there are. Maybe not in the recruiting world, but in coaches, yes. But they're not going to come out and say it the way I just did. Okay? But that's the way they do it. That's the way they'll ultimately do it, but you have to be careful just saying that. No, you will find coaches. That's why that one-on-one conversation. That's why your son's sitting down and having that conversation. I would bring on a recruiting visit, and we would do that whole talk with mom and dad and the kids and my assistant coaches. Then we'd go and do the tour of the school, and you'd break away and be able to speak to dad alone, mom alone, and student athlete alone. And you would bring up a conversation. I would bring up, wow, you believe how bad the Knicks are, or something like that. Just start a conversation. Because you don't want the yes sir, no sir, yes sir, no sir stuff. That means nothing. You want the player to say, wow, I was at the Knicks game. That was the worst game. I was standing there booing, and you know, but you want to get the personality, and you want your son to know the coach's personality. Incredibly important. Go watch games. But don't just watch the score of the game. You can look that up. Go there and watch the interaction in the dugout. Watch the interaction of the players with each other, with the other coaches, with the head coach, with the umpires, with the opposing team. That tells you what kind of program you're looking at. That's how you find out. When I'm scouting, first time I see you, I'm standing behind the left field fence. I have nothing on that says Phillies. I don't have a radar gun. I don't have a stopwatch. I'm watching you take batting practice. I'm watching you stretch. Take batting practice. Take infield outfield. I'm watching all that I just said. But now I'm asking you and your sons to watch that from the coaching staff as well as the players. You could see so much. Watch a game. You could see so much. Just watching how the players react, the comfort of them getting back in the dugout, the coach's reaction to them, the coach's reaction to a bad play, to a good play, the players' reactions. You have to really take all this in to really grasp what you want. You all want success. Everyone wants success for their kids. You want them to be happy, successful in school, successful in their sport. Well, to me, it's all in the eyes. You have to watch. It's in the ears. You have to listen. And it's here. You have to see if a coach has enthusiasm, if he's energetic, if he really believes in what he's talking about, or if he's just going through the motions. So, yes?
Quick question. How do you know when I'm a student athlete, but I want him to be, the best academically, right? So I don't know whether he's going to be a professional player in any sport he plays, but how do I know by watching a program the investment that the coaching staff of the program has on his academics beyond what I see on the court? That's for me as a parent, right?
Information that I think the NCAA makes public, retention rates and graduation rates.
Correct.
So that would go by you doing your research, having your son do research on the school, on the programs, on the athletics department's retention and graduation rates, which I know I was part of a pilot program way back of doing that. And I look at graduate school admission rates, if you're getting into your first graduate school. I mean, there's so many ways to see you. I believe it's public that you should be able to see GPAs of programs.
Oh, overall, yeah.
Overall program, yeah.
On NCAA.org.
No, I don't know about that. That would be, is it on that, or do you have to go to the school itself? I would
School
think it's
itself.
probably the school itself.
Yeah,
Right?
I would say it's in.
You can find out through through the academic advisement, but you should be able to find out very easily what the GPA is of the teams. I mean, I published mine. We had a good GPA, so I made sure everyone knew it. I made sure the president knew it. I made sure everybody.
And to Coach's point, there's a lot of times where schools will release academic All-American lists, etc.
Yes.
You know, I know Fordham does that a lot. So that's another way for you to look, check in, and see how valued academics are by the respective school and program, etc.
Right.
And I'm going to end with something before I open for questions, too. I used to tell people to look, again, at the retention, not only in the school, but on the team. And I would look for consistency in the coaching staff. And I would look for consistency in the athletics department. Other than when people are moving up and they left to do something better, but I would look for that. Because again, that would just tell me, okay, people like it here. People like it on that team. People graduate on that team. People stay on the team for all those years. That's telling me something is going right on that team.
And are athletes that are currently on the team receptive to hearing from potential athletes who want to go to their school?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. And that was part of a recruiting process. You'd obviously have the right student athletes with you that knew, but it wasn't that they were going to fake what they were telling you. They just knew about the dorms, about this, about that. They would be hosts. But then during an official visit, if they're staying overnight or if they're there for an official visit, they get to deal with the entire team. And yeah, people will tell you everything about the school and everything about the program, their perception of it, you know, which sometimes is depending on your at-bats or how many games you've pitched, you have a different perception. But realistically, it's good for your sons to get different viewpoints. And again, how people are still together as a team. I mean, I know teams stay together. I could speak for Xavier that these teams, I mean, they all seem to become families. They're together, they're doing everything all together all the time, which is a great thing. Now, can't always expect that in college because you know what? There's a little competition there now. Okay, there's a lot of competition there. And when we put people in rookie ball, we do something very badly, as far as I'm concerned. We room two people in the same position, in the same room, in hotels for the rest of the season for rookie ball. Now, I understand the concept of what they're doing. It's self-policing. But only one of these two kids are going to emerge, and the other one's going to be sent home. So don't always make sure that they're not going in with too much of an expectation, because there is a little bit more competition in college. But overall, it still comes down to this. Everything that you were told and you were going to receive, again, was invaluable. I mean, that was a perfect presentation. I might still be an athletics director if I had you helping me. That was absolutely perfect. But don't lose the personal part of it. Don't think it's as analytical as you think. Don't think it's as black and white as you think. It's really not. Okay, you have to, it comes down to a personal thing, and it comes down to, my favorite word I think today was comfort. Because everyone has to be comfortable in the situation. And you succeed much better when you're comfortable. Yes?
Typically,
when does a D1, D2, football and baseball college deplete their scholarship money?
Typically, probably way before they're actually supposed to be setting this up. I mean, I want to say this nicely because I feel like I have somebody like watching me over here. I'm in trouble. But probably a little bit ahead of time. Look, the money is 11.7 scholarships in D1. I believe it has to be broken down nothing less than 25%. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that happen. And, I mean, left-handed pitchers throwing 90 to 6'5" are going to be lined up ahead of time to get that money right away. So they normally won't. In your senior year, it's very hard to get money. If you're going into your senior year and they're not unofficially committed to you, or you're not really in that point of conversation, it's hard for a coach to see you in January of your senior year, February, and say, hey, I have a scholarship waiting for you. And most people don't get full scholarships, are not given out a lot because of the 11.7. 4-year guaranteed scholarships really don't happen that much because of that same thing, because you could come back the next year 80 pounds overweight and not throwing a baseball all year. So there's things you hear that aren't 100% true. And the money will go quickly. The money will go quickly. Now, you get financial aid money. Financial aid money is different. But I think, is there still TAP? Tuition Assisted Program? In New York, that's gone now? Because that used to be first come, first serve.
No. I'll give it to the college guidance counselors. We'll talk about all that at the college presentation. Don't worry about financial aid right now.
Is that gone though? Is TAP?
No, TAP exists, but it's very hard to get.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's a need-based form of financial aid, and the max you would get you have to be a New York State resident going to a New York State school, and the absolute max, if you're below $43,000 a year, total income between both parents is $6,000 or so. So maybe you'll get $500. If you're paying most of the tuition here, maybe you'll get that. Don't TAP. That's a little bit of salt on top of your meal.
Express plus money.
That's for books. There's a whole lot of other forms of financial aid and scholarships out there.
Yeah, which
we'll cover at a different time.
Okay, my next question is it true, what I've heard, D1, D2, and D3, if a coach is interested in someone who is very academic and blew away the SATs and all whatnot, that if they really want the player, I mean, maybe this is also for you, there might be a conversation between like the academic money that they would be getting versus athletic money.
100%. Yeah.
I was just going to say, there's no question about that one.
Yeah.
I can give it a Xavier example if you'd like. So we had a student a few years ago who was a recruited athlete. Not some guy who wanted to participate in sport in college. He was recruited by a Division I program in the ACC, had a zero expected family contribution after filing his federal aid forms, his FAFSA. And tell me if I'm wrong, but I think from what I understood was that the benefit to the team and the coach was that because their school met full financial need in the form of a need-based grant, he received all the money he could need to pay for tuition, room and board, and fees through his federal grant money and through the institutional money based on need. So although he was their best athlete on that team, I'm trying to keep it somewhat vague to keep the kid's information confidential, although he was, as a freshman, the best performer on his team at a Division I school, and this is rare, that team did not have to commit athletic money, scholarship money, to that student because he received all the money that he could need to go to the school based on his financial need. That is rare for a Xavier student, but and that helps the coach because that gives him more money to play with to get better runners. or a better athlete.
Yeah, he meant athletes. He's an athlete.
There you go.
But that is true. That
was actually a throw. Yes. He's a football player.
Just had a quick question. Is it typical, people have been telling me that it's become more typical for a school to suggest that you repeat the grade, even if your grades are phenomenal, because you might be on the young side, or so when you're entering the college, you'd be at an advantage. I've just heard that a lot, and I don't understand.
In terms of repeating a grade at a lower level?
No, in high school.
In high school. This has become...
That's a really tricky question. That's
reclassing.
But we don't... I mean, officially, we have no thought of that.
Well, we don't do that here. You would have to leave Xavier. We wouldn't let you repeat a grade. But
people are doing that, and I really don't see...
Our students typically don't do that. I have seen hockey players go to another school to repeat a grade, just get bigger, stronger, faster. It really depends on the sport. It depends on your son's physical makeup. And really, there are no guarantees that you would transfer out of Xavier to give yourself more time to develop as an athlete. I don't know a college who would give you a guarantee that will lead to a scholarship, because they're still going to want to see, like Coach was saying, you might be a freak athlete stud in the best shape of his life going as a freshman, sophomore year you come back and you've let yourself go a little bit.
Freshman 15.
Or freshman 150. I don't think any college coach would ever guarantee you a slot or scholarship money or a place on the team just because you transferred. It gets really, you really have to, in my opinion, I've been doing this, I've been here 20 years, I've been in this position for 12 of them.
What's your position?
Currently I'm a college guidance counselor. I've been the director of college guidance counselor, the dean, assistant dean. I've done a few things. But I've worked with our student athletes, and I've coached here for 4 seasons. This can be a crazy world if you let it get crazy. Okay? You're going to hear a lot of things. The reason we're doing this tonight is so that you hear from trusted people on the inside, from the college side, who have experience with that, who are looking out for you and your son's best interest. All right? I don't know what the interests or the motivations are of people who are talking to you outside. You might use your instincts. Use your instincts when it comes to coaches, that you're working with now. Your coaches here at Xavier are probably your best source of the person you can trust most in the process with Mr. Giraldi and your son's counselors and college counselors. I don't have access to any coach at a college level. Every once in a while, I'll get a call for a transcript from an assistant coach. So be it. That's fine. I can give it to you. You can give it to them. It doesn't have to be official. It's your document to send wherever you want. But trust your coaches here. Trust your coaches on your travel teams if you're playing there. What are your son's chances of playing collegiately? That's not my role. That's not necessarily the athletic director's role, the compliance officer's role. A coach can give you an idea, but ultimately it's going to be, once you reach out to the college and say, hey, I'm here, it's going to be their return in the conversation that will let you know whether they are interested in you and if you might be able to play for them. And if you are able to play for them, what does that come with? Does it come with money if it's Division I? Division III, you're going to hear that there's so many myths and rumors about the college process. They quadruple when it comes to the college athletics process. D3 schools can find you money somehow, right? Right? Wink, wink. No, they can't. If you have financial need, they can. But they're not going to find you some kind of athletic scholarship money through a back door. It does. Would you agree, Coach?
There's no such thing.
There's no such thing. It doesn't happen.
Doesn't exist.
All right?
It just doesn't exist.
So I think the most important thing is trust the people and go to the people for advice, direction, guidance, who you've had a relationship with for an extended period of time.
On the reclass, there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee that it's going to the college if the college coach told you to reclass. They can't give you, there's no guarantee, right? Because that's an extra year. They can't tell you to do that. And you can't hold them to that if he reclasses and then they don't want it. It's just like the verbal commit. Yeah. It's the same thing as the verbal commit. Yeah, big deal. You committed to it, well then the coach got fired. Or the coach quit, or we got other different people. Your commit means zero. Nothing. You gave or bring it up.
What if you did sign an NLI and then the coach got fired or left?
They have to. I can tell you that they have to. For the first year, they have to honor it.
They must honor it.
They have to honor it.
There is an exception to where you can then choose to go to a different institution if, say, the coach comes in, a new coach comes in, and their values don't align with yours. You don't want your son to go to that institution anymore. There is an exception for a coach who quits or has cut within a certain time period.
To decommit, yes. Again, don't get caught up with putting names up and college names up, because, as we said before, as you said very nicely before, I'm not going to say this nicely, yeah, they want you to go on their website for their summer team that costs $10,000 for you to play on in baseball, and they want you to see, wow, all these people are going to Texas and Florida and LSU and all that, but the team's still losing, number one. It's costing you $10,000 to play, and all those players aren't going there. They're verbally committed. And again, that just means the coach is going to be like, yeah, sure. You want to verbally commit to me? Yeah, okay. I verbally commit to you too. Why not? That's it. I'm going to put you on the website now. That looks good. And it means nothing. I'm telling you, it means nothing. We had so many of these cases in the NCAA. It was crazy. That's what the calls were for. But he was committed. I'm like, well, he was a sophomore. He wasn't. No, he was committed. The coach said he was committed. I'm like, well, where's the coach now? He got fired. Maybe that's why.
I know I'm not I'm a rugby, so I'm sort of not in this conversation, but what do they mean when they say we're going to flag your application? Like, is that something else that's not really meaning?
I mean, I can speak to that a little bit. I know, for instance, at Penn State, certain schools, rugby's an entirely different animal. In some instances, they have a partnership with the admissions department, or they have somebody who essentially is the admissions liaison for athletics, and they're able to flag, if students meet the baseline admission requirements, they're able to flag certain students up to, depending on the institution. I know Penn State, I believe, is 5. They're able to say, we want these 5 admitted, no matter what. And they have, quote-unquote, slots to give out there. That helps.
And that also applies to D3, yeah?
I don't think so. The admission process in D3 is different based on if it's a private school, right, which they can change their. A private school can take you no matter what their requirements are. Private school does have the flexibility to make an exception. So again, anytime anybody guarantees you something before you're signing the national letter of intent, just remember what that guarantee. It's not signed. Just always remember that. Coaches get fired. Coaches quit. Athletics directors are gone. People lose their programs. Just please be aware of that, because that's crazy, and it happens way too much.
Word of mouth is word of mouth.
That's
all it is.
You know what? In the old days, a handshake might have meant more. Now it doesn't mean a thing.
Exactly.
And please don't trust it, because it does look good on websites for people to say all these things and who's going there, and then all of a sudden they don't. So I'm being very, very blunt on that, because that's
a reality.
It's a reality, and there's too many people that get really messed up because of that. They didn't deserve to get messed up, but they trusted people. So
another key outcome. Another piece of the puzzle, I've seen this with our soccer guys a few times, if you are looking to play soccer and you're in season, it's kind of a good recruiting time. A college might ask you to apply early decision to commit to them, and then they will commit back to you potentially athletically. But the early decision application is a binding agreement between you and the college that if admitted, you will go there. That's through the admissions office. That's not necessarily through the athletics office. So you want to make sure that all of that lines up between admissions and athletics. And most schools don't have evil motives and try to trick you into doing something. It's not that. If they're asking you, if the athletics people are asking you to apply, because the admissions people won't. If the athletics folks are asking you to apply early decision, okay, that's a pretty good indication that they're on the same page within their internal offices between the athletics liaison in the admissions office and the coaching staff, and that's usually a pretty good sign. If you can swing it financially.
Hi, my son is in varsity soccer as a junior. He will be his second year of varsity. So I would say my son loves the game, but I think as an objective father, I think he would be Division III at best. So I think most of the kids in this school are Division III.
A majority? Sure. I think any school can say that. Yeah.
Right, so would you give a special presentation to kids who are more aiming at Division III?
I think that's a conversation between you, your son, and your son's coach. Okay. They'll have a decent idea of where they might be able to play and at what level.
Right, and most programs for the CHSAA and CHSFL, after the season they have to submit an evaluation form directly to the league, essentially giving a brief scouting of their player pool. So how many potential D1 athletes do you have? How many D2? How many D3? So as Mr. Gibbons is saying here, make sure you have that conversation with your coach, because he's the best, obviously, evaluator of your son's talent.
Because teams like Division III is a completely different swamp.
It depends on the sport. D3 hockey is very, very competitive. Baseball, less slots than football. So, football needs to field a much bigger roster year to year than a lot of other sports. So it depends on the sport, it depends on the division, it depends on the conference, the region.
A lot of variables.
The cost of the school. There are a lot of things to consider, obviously. But if your son, I would say you want to find a good fit. Everything with college, for us, we preach this through every presentation we'll ever give through the college department specifically. You want to find a good fit. If your goal is to go to Harvard,
and that's what coach is saying.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. And that's what you want to do. But you have an 82 average here, might not be a great fit. Might be a little tough to do well academically and play a full-time varsity sport. College level sport. But you know your son, and you can share information with us. We know your son in some capacity, but you know him best. So that partnership with Xavier is going to be key to figuring all that out.
Do the boys get to see that evaluation at the end of the season so they would know what to work on going forward?
Coaches are available at the end of the season, to certainly set goals for the upcoming year. So one of my initiatives is encouraging all of our coaches to make sure they're available not only after the unfortunate part of the cuts, but also postseason evaluation. I'm sitting down with coaches to evaluate how the season went, where there's room for improvement, et cetera. And obviously we encourage our coaches to have those conversations with student athletes as well. But at the end of the day, we also preach self-advocacy. Right, so we want as Coach was saying with the emails that are going out collegiately, if that's something that your son strives for, he should be having that open and honest conversation with his coach here at Xavier to set goals for the upcoming year.
Oh, it's all right. I'm not doing that.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you.
Just a quick question. I was a little late, so this may have been answered. When should the athletes start reaching out to coaches?
You're going to get. I'm going to cut that short. You're going to get a copy of this presentation.
Sure. We'll work. So we've Smile. You're at least on audio. We've been recording tonight. So we'll post this. We'll also share Shannon's materials in some capacity over the next week or so to make sure that you have all the materials available.
Share the full NCAA page on there, which will say the sport, the first contact, the second contact, the whole thing. She's all prepared and ready to go, unlike me.
No, that's great. I just want to thank all of you for coming out tonight. I encourage you to try some of Mr. Wazlowski's burgers that he's been flipping. And we do have, as I said, a reception in Keenan Commons. Please stop by and grab some dinner before you leave. Thank you very much. Thanks so much.
As you guys know, we've done
Yeah.
Yeah.